don't have the
for
camera set up. Well, because I don't have the camera, so if people start talking.
This is a recording for the online,
For the live
right?
stream, exactly.
Oh, so do we need louder speaker or do we need a mic?
No, Stimson is different than CT. We're broadcasting that's Stimson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I can see you.
Last Friday. So we all know that April 27th, last Friday, South Korean president and North Korean leader held the first Inter-Korea summit since 2007. The Panmunjom Declaration from the summit is a historical accord. It sets bold goals for an end of the war, establishing a permanent and solid peace regime, as well as a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. No one could deny that this is a major positive development, especially considering that nearly a few months ago, the Korean peninsula was still at the brink of armed conflict. However, there are also plenty of questions and skepticisms among scholars, among experts, related to the path moving forward. Is North Korea genuinely committing itself to denuclearization, or this is a purely a tactical move to convince the international community to ease the sanctions? Will South Korea be so eager to pursue reconciliation that President Moon will be willing to use his political capital to diffuse internal and external criticisms? China has claimed itself to be instrumental in cultivating the dialogues, but will China from now on be sidelined and become a bystander? Last but perhaps most importantly, what will be President Trump's calculations and bottom lines when he meets with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, given the common wishes expressed by South and North Korea? These are no easy questions, but we are delighted today to have invited three experts on Korean Peninsula from South Korea, China, and the United States to enlighten us on how we should really interpret the outcomes of the summit from each country's perspective. Joining me today are Dr. Heung-Kyu, Associate Professor from Ajou University, and currently a visiting scholar at Georgetown University. He has served as a board member of several South Korean governmental institutes, including Presidential Commission on Policy Planning and the National Security Council. And secondly, we have Dr. Xiao from China, Dr. Ren is a professor of international politics at Fudan University in Shanghai. He has served various advisory roles to the Chinese government on Northeast Asia and was seconded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from 2010 to 2012. Last but not least, Mr. Keith LUSE, Executive Director of the National Committee on North Korea. For us who work on East Asia in Washington, D.C., Keith has been our teacher and needs no introduction. He has had a distinguished career on the Hill, serving as the Senior East Asia Policy Advisor for Chairman and later Ranking Member Senator Richard Lugar from 2003 until 2013 at the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So today we're going to ask Dr. Kim, Dr. Ren, and Mr. LUSE to each make a 10 to 15 minutes presentation in that order, and then we will open the floor up for questions and discussions. So without further ado, Dr. Kim, please.
Okay, could you turn it on? This one? How to start? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I am privileged to be invited and then to speak about the Korean situation. It's a great honor. As you see in the screen, South Korean's security environments are not really so optimistic. We are surrounded by the four great powers plus one. You know what I mean, plus one is North Korea. You can see the leaders, the face of leaders, and then those five guys, and then which is not the name of the restaurant, which is delicious and then something good, but really scary for us. And then also before the True Korea summit, you can see the Kim Jong-un's face and then Trump's face. This is the kind of exact image of these leaders in South Korea. Kim Jong-un is like a kind of image of a burglar and inexperienced, young, and then of course Trump is with fire and fury. Okay, and then we have a summit. Then suddenly, South Koreans' perception to Kim Jong-un, I can say, has been changed. You can see how handsome he is, how nice he looks, smiling, And then also you can see the Kim Jong-un's and then also the President Trump's smiling, and such a nice, wonderful person in the world. So this is the exact maybe a psychological maybe situations in South Korea. Okay, but as you witness, the North Korea recently they had several nuclear and missile tests and then provoked the world. North Korea on September 9th last year, they detonated the sixth nuclear bomb. They argue that it is a kind of hydrogen bomb, and then also the 15 missiles launched within just a year. And then in 2 years, they more than 30 missile launches they practiced. So in situations, the military conflicts is quite likely, and then we can maybe figure out why North Korea go for nuclear. The most important reason is kind of because of the power transition, I think. North Korea once enjoyed the superiority in terms of their national capabilities, including military and economy. Maybe they can say political thought and then or ideas. However, from 1980 on, the subtle balance between the South and North Korea was changed. And then obviously, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and then also the Eastern European bloc, North Korea became more and more isolated. And even China established a normal relationship with South Korea in 1992. And so in front of confronting this kind of power transition, North Korea made a big decision to go for nuclear. It's a kind of long story. And then another reason is to secure the survival of the Kim's regime, and then including Kim Jong-il and then Kim Jong-un, and also the strengthen the military balance against the South. As I mentioned, the changing power balance on the Korean Peninsula, and also to deny the U.S. hostile policies and then regime change. So North Korea was tenacious in building their military capabilities, and then also launched the ICBM over the United States, which they seems to believe it is the maybe panacea to protect them. And then, however, it suddenly changed. This is the a kind of comparison of two Koreas. And also I prepared a lot, but to show Yoon-san and how hard I worked, and then, but she said only 10 minutes, so I have to skip. So please pardon me. Inter-Korean relations at a glance, and then this is heavily fortified country, okay, military, and within 100 miles there are more than 2 million armies, massing there. And then also this is the kind of history of North Korea's provocation and then development of the nuclear weapons and missiles. And this is the North Korea's three generation of leaders. And then North Korea's political economic system and how it works. And then Kim Jong-un now focus on the developing their nuclear weapons and ICBM, and this is the kind of pictures. And this is pictures of bombardment of South Korea's soil, Yeonpyeong Island, 2012, and North Korea for the first time on the soil of South Korea they bombard. And then of course South Korean army returned, but this is the how terrible the South Korean situation is, and then always they confront of the bombardment from the north side. And then North Korea's military threat. Let me skip all of this. Oh, this is the U.S. Rock Alliance exercise. Okay. South Korea's North Korea policies. Let me briefly introduce Moon's policies. And then Moon Jae-in, before Moon Jae-in became the president, true conservative president always pursue a kind of peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. But when people look at their policies in detail, they seem to believe both conservative governments try to make North Korea collapse and then observe in terms of South Korea's. So North Korea was quite hostile to this kind of conservative governments, and then but Moon Jae-in government has changed that kind of policy direction, and Moon Jae-in government pay special attention to the coexistence instead of absorption, and then also co-prosperity, and then gradual unification by peaceful means. This is the basic line of Moon Jae-in's North Korea policies. Okay. Throughout the nuclear crisis on the Korean Peninsula, there are 4 kinds of ideas around or in Korea about North Korea's change. First, idea is the collapse school, and then I think the Lee Myung-bak government represent the kind of or reflect the kind of idea, and also second school is neglect. This is no appeasement, no war, and maybe strategic patience. And this is Park Geun-hye's government, maybe plus Obama plus. Third one is sunshine policies, as you mentioned, and as you know, Kim Dae-jung's and the Nomuyen's policies. But I think Moon Jae-in government's belongs to the negotiations course, which is quite pursuing peaceful ways, and then also the practical ways and the realistic solution. So even though many South Korean conservatives or maybe people in Washington D.C. Seems to still believe kind of Moon Jae-in government inherited from the Kim Dae-jung and the Roh Moo-hyun. But I can say Moon Jae-in's the policy orientation is quite different from them, even though they embrace the kind of sunshine policies idea, but still they are very cautious, and also they try to keep pace with the international society. This is the very different, and then also they pay special respect to the ROC-US alliance. I can say confidently this kind of idea because I'm one of the person who try to make his campaign into policies. I was one of the 3 members, so I can confidently say to Moon Jae-in's the North Korea policies different from the past. So okay. Then why North Korea changed? Okay, first one is of course diplomatic isolation, and then even China joined the sanctions, even though some of Korean conservatives and then also some member of American think tanks groups don't believe the China really seriously joined the kind of sanction club, but anyway, China was quite serious, as far as I understand, that on sanctions, and then also this provide North Korea with a tremendous pressure. Second one is the international sanction and then economic hardship expected. If current level of sanctions continue, and then North Korea is likely to face tremendous difficulties in running the economy, and then also the Kim Jong-un's pocket in the future, which may threaten the legitimacy of the Kim Jong-un. Third one is maybe this is also another factor that we have to think about. That Kim Jong-un seems to have a kind of confidence in ruling North Korean society and politics. And also the fourth factor is the Moon Jae-in government incessant efforts to bridge the gap between the North Korea and the United States, and then also even North Korea and the South Korean people. And also we have new opportunities for South Korea government to pursue a kind of peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. And then we have a strong sense of urgency to denuclearize North Korea, and also the North Korea's nuclear development very close to the threatening in the U.S. continent. So United States pay more special attention to the denuclearization of North Korea. President Trump is now working on that quite seriously. So we can say also Trump factors. If we just follow the conventional ways of negotiations, it's quite difficult to maybe induce North Korea into the kind of negotiation table. But Trump factor, I think, certainly works, even though many of my friends didn't want to listen to. But Trump is anyway quite special, something different. No matter whether we like him or not, this is the kind of true. And also as I mentioned, North Korea's Byungjin line is under heavy stress. So Kim Jong-un seems to have a very maybe a dramatic change possible, and then but still he kept his card in his pocket. So we have to see the outcome of the North Korea and U.S. Summit in the coming. And let me introduce here Moon Jae-in's policies, and then but I cannot maybe Xiao has many sayings to so let me skip. If somebody wants these documents, I'll provide later. Okay. And then I worked out until 2 o'clock p.m. a.m. So, so
Put it on our website.
okay. Oh, thank you. Give me 20 seconds more water. Thank you. There are three main parts in the South-North Korea summit. First part is the seeking for comprehensive and dramatic improvement and development of the relationship between South and North Korea. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, detailed, agreements. And second part is the reduction of military tension and the removal of the war threat measures. Oh, sorry. Okay. And also there is a very, but there's we have to pay special notice on North Korea's subtly changing arguments or maybe announcement. They are saying voluntarily, abandon their nuclear facilities, but now they changed the terminology a little bit different, maybe just sealing instead of abandonment. So this is very important. It means the North Korea may take kind of salami tactics when he met President Clinton. Sorry, Trump. I am getting out of my mind. Okay, sorry. So we carefully watch over the, they're changing vocabularies, and then why they change. It's a mistake or not? I don't think it's a mistake. It's they're showing a kind of their tactics. Okay, so this is the one thing I pay attention to. And third one is the establishment of a perpetual and sturdy peace regime. So there is a kind of hotline established between the South Korea and North Korea leaders, and the regular summit they promised, and then also next summit will be held at Pyongyang in this fall. So, and then also there are several measures to reduce a kind of tension and then also confidence building. Okay, so these three main parts. And then, but let me have a kind of evaluation of on Kim's new approaches. Okay, as many as specialists here, and then pointing out, there is no big changes and no details in Kim Jong-un's given position and in the documents between the South Korea and North Korea summit. But however, building a kind of considerable level of trust between these two leaders seems to be established. And then so there is a kind of behind talks and then individual talks or through the kind of exchanges of their envoys. They seem to have many talks. So South Korean leader seems to have a certain confidence. At this moment, North Korea leader Kim Jong-un may be quite serious in maybe in negotiation with President Trump. And then also we may anticipate something positive, okay, afterwards. So this is the kind of a sense of South Korean leaders, but this is we are not sure because we haven't yet seen the outcomes. This is the situation. Also, the North Korea leader hopes to shift the policy focus to economic development, and also the completion of parallel lines of the military and economy. And third one is Kim shows his confidence on domestic stability and focusing improvement with the South Koreans. And then in this summit, their main focus is how to improve relationship between the South and North Korea, instead of building certain region to maybe the United States or other that kind of. But the main focus is to build better relationship with the South Korea. This is what we observe. And then, of course, there is he tried to strengthen the international capacity left over for the U.S. North Korea summit. This is a kind of carefully maybe articulated by the South Korean leaders. because South Korean government, particularly President Moon Jae-in, wants to give the credit to President Trump. So we didn't have any detailed, guidelines, principles, or policies about denuclearization in the summit. Just we agreed upon the basic principles and maybe policy directions. So everything, almost everything, left over for the U.S. North Korea summit. So this is what we can anticipate, something good, something maybe, maybe a better result than we anticipate. So this is the one thing. And then also North Korea hopes China to play limited roles. Maybe, yes, for the end of armistice, but not for the peace treaty. So this is a kind of implications. And then, and then six, North Korea will adopt gradualist and salami tactics in mind in implementation, although Kim agrees to denuclearization with Trump in principle. Seventh, Kim looks for the compromise to keep nuclear capability of the past while giving up nuclear capability of present and the future, and ICBM maybe. So still, Kim Jong-un hopes to, keep the, nuclear capabilities in the past. This is what I read. And then eighth, Kim is, throughout this, summit, Kim aims for the, changing his images, which is quite successful anyway, at least in South Korea, and then also to reduce the pressure of the international sanction from the international societies, and also enlarge diplomatic space between the United States and China. And then you can imagine that North Korea, how they played during the Cold War period in between the Soviet Union and China. Maybe this is the ideal, position for the North Korea in the future. So they really try to, broaden their diplomatic space, and also the taking lead on the South Korean, Korean issues. And then my last suggestion, sorry, give me the 1 more minute. No?
Since you prepared till 2 a.m., so of course.
Okay, thank you very much. You are so generous. Okay, we have to act firmly for denuclearization of North Korea as time is limited, and then don't repeat the past experience. So North Korea has several reasons to adapt much more, progressive and bold approaches now because of their, not because of their lenience, but because of their difficulties. So we have to utilize the kind of moments, and so we can put the, make sure the, how in detail they're gonna adopt the kind of denuclearization, measures. Second one is we need to coordinate and sustain the North Korean policies. I mean, we means international society, including China, and then our goals and the strategies, and then our capabilities, capacities to push the pressure until the North Korea give up their nuclear weapons. And otherwise, North Korea is really good at utilizing the kind of differences between or among countries in great powers. And then the key of success in the Trump-Kim summit is whether they are able to agree to what degree and how fast to denuclearize North Korea. And then in return for the denuclearization, how to assure Kim on security of North Korea is the most important agenda. I suggest we have to pursue an interest and security-based mutual threat reduction approaches beyond the legal normative approaches. And then also we have to proceed with the regional peace regime building in parallel. Korea should not be divided, should not be a divided buffer zone, but a kind of unified peace zone. This is our dream. And in the worst case, South Korea may choose either nuclear armament and then a stronger alliance. And then also South Korea already prepared for the worst scenarios while launching the military reform. And then so we have to think about the most, with optimistic idea and a positive outcome, but we have to also prepare for the worst scenario as well. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kim. And now it seems to be a good lead up to the role of the great powers and the panda. Now, let's talk about the 800-pound panda in the room. Dr. Ren, China's role, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to join Dr. Kim in thanking the Stimson Center for this opportunity of exchanging views today. Since January, we have seen a series of fast-moving and dizzying diplomatic moves, which led to the Inter-Korean Summit and a joint declaration just last Friday. As always, different analysts have different assessments of the same developments. Dr. Kim and I are longtime friends, but that does not mean that we always agree with each other. I myself believe that something really significant is going on. These developments are exactly what China has hoped to see. A softening of positions of all sides, and to solve the problems through dialogues and diplomatic means. The Korean Peninsula is always full of dramatic events. After a crazy year of missile launches and nuclear testing and being imposed one round of sanctions after another, Kim Jong-un kicked off the year with a New Year address celebrating the completion of his nuclear deterrent. At the same time, he also expressed North Korea's interest in participating in the Winter Olympics to be held in Pyeongchang, South Korea, the next month. As always the case, developments on the Korean Peninsula, often like the Olympics, was used as a vehicle to reopen diplomatic talks. That has led to a flurry of high-stakes diplomacy in the region. South Korean envoys were invited to Pyongyang, and they were greeted and hosted dinner by Kim Jong-un himself. They came back with startling messages for Inter-Korean Summit in April, and Kim's offer for a Kim-Trump summit. President Trump immediately accepted the offer relayed by the South to meet with Kim Jong-un. In all these interactions, China seemed not to be discernible. And this sparked a flurry of worries in a country that China might have been sidelined. This was disproved shortly when Kim Jong-un decided to pay a visit to Beijing, his first ever foreign journey as the North Korean leader, from March 25th to 28th. The Xi Jinping-Kim Jong-un summit was widely believed a surprise meeting, as it was arranged hastily and announced only after the visit was completed. What mattered was that the initiative came from Pyongyang, and it was Kim who wanted it after over 6 years of refusing to visit China. The excuse for the Beijing trip was an easy one, as he stated during his summit with President Xi that he should, quote unquote, congratulate Xi's re-election face to face. This visit happened after China's two sessions, as we say, which renewed his tenure as president of the PRC. But the visit's implications went far beyond that. It happened before the Inter-Korean Summit and the Kim-Trump Summit. The timing spoke for itself. The visit raised questions about what Kim hoped to accomplish with this latest unexpected burst of diplomacy after years of provocative threats. The visit once again highlighted China's key role on the Korean Peninsula and demonstrated it could by no means be bypassed. That Kim Jong-un met the Chinese leader was in itself a major development. Early on, relations between the two had become increasingly strained, and Kim needed Beijing's help in emerging from international sanctions and its isolation. Kim might have realized that he could not survive a sustained economic squeeze. China is now the first country to be officially visited by Kim Jong-un, and both sides have once again pledged to support the peaceful development of relations between China and North Korea. Coming after years of unusually bad relations between the two countries, the summit represented a major breakthrough in DPRK-PRC relations. While the DPRK press stayed silent on the nuclear issue, 7 of the 8 pages of Northern Xinban, the Workers' Party newspaper, were dedicated to the summit. Although privately Xi and Kim might not harbor many friendly feelings towards each other, their meeting was based on solid utility. Kim had something to show that he has a Chinese rear, so to speak, before the Inter-Korean and Kim-Trump summits, whereas Xi demonstrated that China had traditional ties and enduring bonds with the North and could by no means be marginalized. Between North and South Korea, the exchange of art performance played a visible role in the thawing of inter-Korean relationship, which rapidly warmed up in February and March. The same also happened between the North and China. In less than a month's time after Kim's Beijing visit, China sent a high-profile artist group to visit Pyongyang and conducted performances there. Hastily arranged, the group was led by director of the CCP International Liaison Department, Mr. Song Tao, and this was unprecedented. This arrangement highlighted the political mission set for the performers to breed a warm atmosphere, as if nothing unpleasant had ever happened between the two countries. Signaling that something important would happen, on April the 20th, North Korea convened a ruling Workers' Party of Korea plenary session and announced that from April 21st on, it would terminate nuclear and missile tests and close off the Punggye nuclear testing base in Chinese Fengxili, where the North nuclear tests were conducted. The major messages Kim Jong-un wanted to convey to his cadres and people include: first, Kim delivered the keynote speech to educate the North Korean people that the time had come to rethink the country's nuclear status. North Koreans have made significant sacrifices to develop their nuclear weapons and had tended to believe they are their treasured sword that could never be placed on any negotiating table. The North Korean leader needed to mobilize support for such a big change in such a short period of time. Second, based on Kim's speech, the party plenary meeting adopted 2 resolutions claiming the great victory of the party's Beijing line, namely simultaneously pushing forward economic construction and the building of a nuclear force. The resolutions explicitly acknowledge that the Beijing line has accomplished its historical mission and will be replaced by an economy-first strategy. In other words, North Korea will single-mindedly concentrate all efforts on economic construction. Third, the party plenary meeting decided to take unilateral actions to suspend nuclear and missile tests from April 21st and close off the nuclear facilities in Fengxi. In fact, the North dropped a demand that freezing its nuclear and missile tests should be reciprocated by a suspension of U.S.-South Korea joint military exercise. So it seems that Kim Jong-un has made a major decision to change course. And I understand that many people in this town are skeptical of the recent developments. And I believe they have reasons to be suspicious. But I tend to believe that something very significant is happening. And it is, people often ask that whether North Korea will give up its nuclear weapons or not. But actually, the question is that it is an interactive process, depending on how the outside world deals with Kim Jong-un. So a benign interaction will depend on moves that are made both inside North Korea and outside North Korea. There are 3 things that we should follow very closely. 3 major developments, in my view. First is Trump-Kim summit that will be held probably in June. If it happens, it will be a historic development between U.S. and the DPRK. Second, President Xi Jinping of China will visit North Korea, probably after the Kim-Trump summit. And third, President Moon Jae-in of South Korea will visit North Korea this fall. What will come out of all these summits, we will see. And my hunch is that these are very important developments to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ren. I'm sure we all have a lot of questions, but please hold for another presentation. Mr. LUSE, please enlighten us on what the U.S. plans to do now.
Oh. Young, thank you and the Stimson Center for the privilege of being here, and thanks to my colleagues for your excellent presentations. My comments today are my own, rather than on behalf of the National Committee on North Korea. Recent events on the Korean Peninsula, including North Korea's participation in the Olympics and the Moon Kim Summit, are extraordinary. A summit between Kim Jong-un and President Trump would be remarkable, given tensions between North Korea and the United States during the decades since the signing of the Korean War armistice, and the fact that in a technical sense the war continues. Understanding Moon-Kim summit was a beginning, a groundwork for the future. There are 6 initial points of significance, or observations or questions, that come to my own mind. A central question is whether the public optics associated with these events reflect a true paradigm shift in the mind of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un regarding his country's nuclear program. 2, what are the respective definitions of denuclearization on the part of Kim, Moon, Trump, and Xi Jinping? Number 3, how do North Korea's biological and chemical weapons programs fit into the overall mix? What about short and medium-range missiles? An observation is that Leader Kim and President Trump in particular share a common operating style which embodies a high comfort level with audacity, bold gestures, and breaking with norms and expectations. Observation number 5, President Moon Jae-in has continually embraced a preference for engagement with the North since assuming office, consistent with his approach to North Korea as part of the Nomu-Yoon administration. And number 6, it's clear that President Xi Jinping has directed China's increasing enforcement of sanctions in the recent past targeting North Korea. Well, President Trump's approach to North Korea has been unconventional in comparison to past practice. The president brought his CEO skills to the Oval Office. Like any CEO facing a major challenge or crisis, the president has been utilizing resources available within and without the administration, and outside the administration. His intensity in pursuing a resolution of North Korea's nuclear program is matched by President Moon's commitment to engagement with the North. Both of these dynamics exist in the new reality of North Korea possessing the capability of potentially hitting the United States with a nuclear-tipped missile. Unless President Xi Jinping and Chairman Kim Jong-un truly understand the seriousness with which the Trump administration and the Congress view this capability, there is the unfortunate possibility of a miscalculation on their part, especially during the implementation phase of any agreement, which could ultimately result in U.S. military action targeting North Korea. And then, of course, there are issues on the U.S. side related to a possible agreement with North Korea. There will be officials within the Trump administration, as in past administrations, some appointed, others part of the bureaucracy, who consider a negotiated settlement with North Korea as a fantasy, a stretch too far. Their inclination, like during the George W. Bush presidency, may be to erode implementation of a policy reflecting engagement with North Korea, betting that in time there will be a collapse of North Korea's regime. Consequently, in the event President Trump and Leader Kim reach any agreement, their respective willingness to fully implement the details may determine whether the Korean War resumes. Secretary Pompeo, who has invested heavily on President Trump's behalf, may become increasingly distracted by other world events. Unless the administration appoints a full-time official or czar to oversee implementation of any agreement by all sides, who would also serve as the president's envoy to the Congress, to the number of countries involved, then the post-summit performance of the Trump administration may falter. The administration's maximum pressure strategy, combined with the president's unpredictability, have been, in my opinion, primary drivers contributing to China's now active role in the overall process, as well as North Korea's willingness to engage. However, Leader Kim Jong-un exudes a greater level of personal and national confidence in his new engagement with other countries as a result of his ICBM capability and other resources on the part of North Korea. Through the years, North Korea as an authoritarian state has benefited from inconsistent U.S. policies toward that country, resulting from inevitable changes in administration, as well as mixed signals or policy conflicts within U.S. administrations. Kim Jong-il especially, and Kim Jong-un, became quite adept at calibrating North Korean provocations and U.S. reactions. Chinese officials over time discerned the degree and the manner with which they needed to admonish North Korea in response to the temperature level within the United States executive branch and the Congress. It became clear that while China led the six-party process, China's focus on regional stability versus the U.S. insistence on North Korean denuclearization contributed to a long-term Chinese emphasis on managing the North Korea issue rather than resolution of the issue as preferred by the U.S. Those days, however, are history. It appears the Trump administration will ratchet up its maximum pressure strategy if necessary to elicit ongoing positive North Korean behavior. However, Chinese cooperation in sanctions enforcement or its acquiescence of U.S. pressure will certainly have its limits. Unfortunate casualties of the overall North Korea sanctions regime and the maximum pressure strategy may be those North Korean citizens suffering from disease and severe hardship. As one example, earlier this year, the Global Fund abruptly terminated its North Korea-related TB and malaria projects. This occurred despite reports of grant performance projects showing these projects to have met or exceeded program requirements since 2010. Shuttering its North Korea operation on the part of the Global Fund will contribute to a severe epidemic of TB and multi-drug resistant TB in North Korea, which may very well spread into South Korea and China. Humanitarian experts project 120,000 new cases of TB and about 5,000 new cases of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis inside North Korea on an annual basis. With the Global Fund's pullout, U.S. executive branch sanctions and other pressures on U.S. humanitarian NGOs operating inside North Korea, along with congressional and UN sanctions, a major humanitarian crisis is stirring inside the North, with real implications for the people of China and North Korea and South Korea as well. In conclusion, nothing will surprise me regarding the outcome of ongoing U.S.-North Korea negotiations and a possible Trump-Kim summit. More than at any other time since 1953, negotiations may result in an agreement impossible to have been achieved during past U.S. administrations. An unconventional American leader, President Trump knows that history will judge him to a significant degree by his handling of the North Korea situation. His North Korean counterpart is unconventional in comparison to his father in some respects as well, one being the allowance of the operation of hundreds of markets and development of a class of North Korean entrepreneurs as his country transitions toward a market economy. There are endless issues beyond denuclearization to be addressed, including U.S. POW MIA issues from the Korean War, human rights, the reunification of families, among others. The road to resolution of all issues related to North Korea is a long one, unless U.S. and North Korean leaders are mutually diligent in the implementation of future agreements. We will then again be off course with unfortunate consequences. Thank you.
Well, big thanks to all of our speakers. If I may exercise a privilege as a chairwoman, I would like to raise 3 questions, each for each of the speakers. So for Dr. Kim, we know that President Moon has been talking about the engagement and improvement of relations with North Korea. And in the Panmunjom Declaration, there are references to economic cooperation. So in your view, do you foresee that this type of economic activities between South and North Korea to happen anytime in the near future? For Dr. Ren, we know that there is the news about, first of all, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi will be visiting North Korea in about 2 days, actually less than 2 days. And he is rumored to be in North Korea to discuss with North Koreans about President Xi Jinping's upcoming visit to North Korea in June. So could you tell us more about this upcoming visit? What is the implication? What's the significance? And for Keith, Well, we all know that six-party talks advocated for a gradual, reciprocal, step-by-step approach to the denuclearization issue, and it fell apart in 2007. So what are the different factors this time around that would give us confidence that North Korean leader this time, other than the fact that it's a different leader, will give us hope about their genuine commitment to denuclearization? Thank you. Dr. Kim?
Okay. In the documents of the summit, and then South Korean government Moon Jae-in obviously, mentioned and also pay special attention to the North and South cooperation, especially economy. However, South Korean government is very cautious in implementing economic cooperation because of the existence of the international sanction and also solidarity with the international society. This is quite different from the what you imagined as kind of mentioned the inheritance of Kim Dae-jung and then Nong-Myeon sunshine policies. You have a kind of a little bit different vision of with the Moon Jae-in government's thinking. Okay, and then Moon Jae-in government pay really respect to the solidarity with the international society, and also will be very cautious. And that's why Moon Jae-in government showed the Kim Jong-un on the bridge his new Korea economic plan. We prepared a lot how to support North Korea and what kind of business we can do, and in various ways. Basically, we have eight types of economic plan, which has through the China and then also the Siberia and also the southern part, and then including over Pacific Ocean. And then, but the key is on the Korean Peninsula. There is the economic cooperation based upon the plan. And so we explained Kim Jong-un, but we didn't promise how to implement. It depends upon the U.S. North Korea summit. And so we gave all the fruits, and then also there something good to Trump. If Trump made a good summit, and then we are going to have a great plan to support North Korea economically with the international society. So this is the plan. So I'm not going to be surprised the South Korea government sooner or later not to launch the massive economic support for North Korea, but they will be taking a kind of gradual approaches while keeping pace with the international society. This is what I understand.
So really big carrots, but not immediately.
Oh yeah, we have big carrots, lots of things, and we are willing to. But first, you have to do what you have to do. You need to do. This is our clear message.
We'll see whether they do it. So President Xi's visit to North Korea?
Well, the announcement of Mr. Wang's forthcoming upcoming visit to North Korea. Well, by the way, Mr. Wang got promoted in March, and he became state councilor and foreign minister. The announcement of his visit is another example of the quickening of diplomatic efforts in the region by the different parties. I think one of his mission is to make preparations for President Xi Jinping's visit later this year. I think these indicate that China wants to seize the opportunity, the momentum to push forward the process of resolving the nuclear problem through diplomatic and peaceful means. I think China believes that now we have the opportunity, and the parties, the relevant parties, should seize the opportunity to push forward the process. So it should be very interesting to watch what will happen out of these visits. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith, please.
You know, a key difference between now and the time when agreements were reached during the six-party talks is North Korea's missile capability of hitting the United States. This has the attention of President Trump, as it would have the attention of President Hillary Clinton or anyone else in the White House. In fact, for years, U.S. defense and security analysts have indicated that at the point that North Korea reached that capability, if North Korea did, that would be a red line and needed to be dealt with. And so this requires the President of the United States, whomever is in the White House, to be focused on this issue in terms of North Korea. And so I believe that President Trump will continue to be focused on North Korea. I believe that he will continue to consult with South Korea, with China, with Russia, Japan. But I believe that this new capability on the part of North Korea will very much makes the difference.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for your insightful answers. Now we'll open the floor up for Q&A. Please identify yourself and try not to make a long statement. Just ask questions, please. Yes, sir.
Hello, thank you for a wonderful panel. Michael Marshall, Global Peace Foundation. Just present a quick scenario. The talks between Trump and Kim break down over the definition of denuclearization. Kim asked for the removal of US troops and the removal of the nuclear umbrella, which has been North Korea's past position. The talks break down. Kim then turns around and says to Xi Jinping and perhaps also to Mr. Putin, I tried my best. I made a serious peace offer, and now the Americans have continued their hostile policy, or whatever he would say. How can you continue sanctions on my country in these circumstances when I tried? How would China, in your opinion, especially Dr. Xiao, how do you think China would respond to that scenario?
That would be a question for Dr. Ren, please.
I think China deserves the best credit for its long-standing efforts to try to bring together different parties and to find a way out for the past 20 years. And Donald Trump is saying that he deserves virtually all the credit for the recent developments. So let's say 50 to 50, to be fair. China, for the past 2 decades, has been trying very hard to induce North Korean leadership to change and open up their society. We tried very hard with some limited successes. But it has been a very difficult process as well. And an eventual resolution requires different parties to make their respective efforts. So I think on the U.S. side, you have a lot to offer North Koreans, as long as they promise to denuclearize. I think China has many things to offer. South Korea has many things to offer. U.S. has a lot of things to offer. And North Korea can get many things in return for denuclearization, be it economic assistance, security guarantee, diplomatic normalization of relationships, and so forth. These are the things that they can all get. But the issue is that they have to denuclearize. So I think the outside world should work together to encourage and induce them to move in that direction. That is our question, and that is what we should study very carefully. What we should do in the next months and years.
If I may, just one of you first.
I'm
sorry, you first.
I'm going to return to part of your questions, and then Koreans has a kind of DNA in the blood, and then it's very aware of the Chinese, intervention, and then so we are always very sensitive to the, and then we are, if China is too much, and then we are willing to fight back, and then but we still want to have have a cooperative relationship. China is huge, and then so if we understand the kind of history and then blood of Koreans, and then I do not think North Korea will ask the United States and South Korea to withdraw U.S. military on South Korea, because if the relationship between the North Korea and United States are hostile, they of course they are going to ask to withdraw. But if they think the relationship becomes smooth, and then the United States the presence in South Korea is going to be great, kind of a card for North Korea to deal with China as well as the United States. So.
Great, but to follow up on Dr. Ren's comment, I just want to ask that very simply, if before North Korea takes actual steps to denuclearize, assuming that North Korea has suspended its missile and nuclear activities, will China lift some of the sanctions?
Well, I think to encourage them to move in the direction of denuclearization, there are some things China can do. Well, Kim Jong-un has announced that they have suspended missile launch and nuclear tests. And for that, I think China can do something bilaterally. Saying something like, well, you are correct in doing so, and we explicitly do some things to change those sanction measures to some extent. So, and I think the United States can do similar things to encourage them to move in the direction of denuclearization. So, and in the next summits, I think well, actually, we should go back to the September 19th agreement, which was reached in 2005. And this remains a very good deal in which different parties commit themselves to various steps in line with the principle of action for action, word for word. So I think this should be inherited for the parties, for the different parties to move ahead in the next months.
Great. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Claire from Hager Associates. This is a question for any of the panelists. Will you speak to the Japanese strategy for involvement during this critical time for North Korean issues? Thank you.
Anyone? Japanese strategy for involvement? Any involvement?
It's a very good question. As you know, Japan has direct interest in the North Korea situation. This has been a primary topic between Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and President Trump. It seems to me that while some would suggest that Japan has been sidelined by virtue of the U.S. and North Korea dialogue, I don't believe that's the case. Prime Minister Abe is not a shy person. He will make certain that his country's interests are represented, in particular the abductee issue, among other points with North Korea. And so if anything, he may view the U.S.-North Korea bilateral approach to a large degree as an opportunity for him, an opportunity for Japan to sort of strike out on its own with North Korea in terms of what they might be able to come to agreement on.
Dr. Kim?
Sorry. Okay. Korean perspective, the Japanese strategy, so is now at the crossroads. They are very carefully watching the Trump's the policies toward North Korea and whether they are going to have a kind of agreements of certain things which is related to the Japan's national security. Okay, short-term missile, and then also abductee issues and the kind of. And but if you look at the Japanese history, Japan is very keen to the change of international, order. So you can see who, with what country Japan allied throughout the history of Japan, and so then it can tell you something in the future, maybe mid to longer term. And then this is the one thing I want to point out. Second one is once upon a time, Japan really want to, have a cooperative relationship with South Korea and to deter China's, expansion. And but certainly, Japan changed the kind of strategies. Japan shows to the United States, and Japan is the only country in the East Asia to deter China. Not Korea. China is quite possible being in the kind of circuit of the orbit of China in the future maybe. So Japanese really seems to pay emphasis. South Korea is just also will be sided with China maybe in the future or sooner or later. But it was not true actually. I can say because I was in the team of the South Korea making the China policies at the moment. We know the negotiations. And then, so now Japan is at the crossroads because Japan was showing that Japan is the only regional great power to deter China. So they try to strengthen the ally with the United States and then to show the United States and then to show the China and then how important Japan is now. And then, but now under Trump, everything is in question. So Japan is in the now crossroads. So.
Okay. All right, we'll move along with questions. Maybe we'll get 3 questions in a row. So this gentleman over here and these 2 ladies sitting over here.
Oh, let me sit there. Thank you for coming. This has been a tremendous dialogues that we have here. Tremendous. Dr. Kim, I agree with you. There is a China factor, President Moon's factor, and then there is American factor, Trump. Because without Trump's high pressure diplomacy, then none of this would happen. However, I am happy that this is happening because we have opportunity to go somewhere as Asia as a total. However, it's very difficult for me to be confident about Mr. Kim's determination. Is he really going to give up his nuclear arsenal? That's because of the past history. Promise, we do this, we do that, we do this. None of this came about. So it's very difficult for me. But he has to understand one thing. Now that everybody in the whole world knows who he is, what he is committed to, meaning his back is against the wall, he cannot turn around and say, no, he can't say that no more, because otherwise the whole world is going to say, oh, this is an axis of evil, so to speak. So that's my question.
Hi, I'm In-sun Kang, Washington Bureau Chief of Joseon Daily News. I have a question for Dr. Xiao. You have said that North Korea has changed. So do you think that change is big enough for North Korea to do CVID?
And another question from
Leah from Voice of America. Dr. Kim mentioned in your presentation that North Korea hopes China to play a very limited role, maybe some role to end the armistice, but no role in the peace treaty. So I'm just wondering, can you talk a little bit more about what kind of role does South Korea want China to play in the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula? And the question for Dr. Ren is, what kind of role does China want in all of this? And just same question for Mr. LUSE. What role does U.S. want China to play? Thank you.
Okay, quite a list of questions. Maybe we'll start with Dr. Kim.
Okay. Once when I attend the Chinese the internal conference, and then I told them China is like a mammoth. So, like the ancient creature, mammoth. Okay.
Mammoth.
And so
large and extinct.
No. Still can be survived. And then anyway, if it is sick, and still neighboring, countries are afraid of whether it's falling down. Okay. And then if it's so energetic, and then we start worrying about. Because the of the Chinese expansion or interventionist approaches, the kind of we are afraid of. China played a very important role during the crisis of the nuclear issues, and then China pays special attention to the stability. So when tension arises, and we really appreciate the role of China to reduce the kind of tension. And then, but as I'm sorry, I just forgot your name, and then Keith mentioned, China didn't really seriously try to resolve the issues. Maybe because it served the Chinese interest. So China tried to maintain the stability first, and then long-term maybe vision of denuclearization. But we are also facing quite different situations. And the United States, we always just followed, and then the United States, and then see the United States, their vision, and then their maybe plans, their strategies for the world. And then now, President Trump saying America first. Then, even though Trump helped us to resolve this kind of issue, and then what next? What? And what kind of visions he's going to provide? Maybe more pressure on South Korea because of the America first policies, and what kind of visions he's going to play. He's going to provide us. This is what we are worried about. and China is growing. This is a reality. So we cannot get out of the kind of influence from China. We are just adjacent to China. And China is so huge, and to just disregard. Then what China can play for the world, what kind of visions they can provide, and still we cannot see. So this is the world, kind of in gray in front of us, and the future of the Korean Peninsula. So we are carefully watching the U.S. Strategies, visions, as maybe Chinese, what kind of you can suggest for us? So this is the situation we are in between, watching over carefully every inch of moves. So this is the situation.
Dr. Ren?
I think there is a possibility for CVID. But as I put it earlier, it will be an interactive process. There's a prospect for us all to move ahead. And there is also a possibility that we cannot fulfill the mission to denuclearize the peninsula. So there are different possibilities, and we must work together to achieve what we hope to achieve. Second, a nuclear-free Korean Peninsula is in everybody's interest. So U.S., China, Japan, South Korea, Russia, and others, we should all make our efforts to bring about a denuclearized Korean Peninsula. So everybody has a role to play, and I hope the role is a constructive one.
In answer to your question, I believe that the U.S. appreciates the role China has played thus far, but as I mentioned earlier, it seems that has been largely focused on managing the situation. We are now at a point where China could be very helpful, and we welcome China's role in actually helping to resolve the North Korea nuclear situation.
We'll see if China is up for it. Another round of 3 questions. Marvin over here and Brian next to him. And oh, yeah, sure. That's one here. Okay, sorry. Sure. Marvin, please.
Marvin Ott, Johns Hopkins Wilson Center. Particularly reacting to Dr. Kim's comment about China being in the DNA of Korea, and if North Korean-U.S. relations improve, then the North Korean view of the role of U.S. forces may change. And that I was going to ask precisely that question, and then you anticipated me. But I wonder if you can elaborate on that at all. Specifically, can you see this, in fact, being at the very center of Trump's negotiations with Kim Jong-un, where Kim Jong-un basically puts on the table right off the bat, if we can develop a constructive relationship, then my view of the U.S. forces in Korea will be very different than the way I've articulated it.
And Brian?
Thank you very much. Brian Kopczynski, also from Voice of America. 2-part question, I think, for Dr. Ren and Dr. Kim and whoever else wants to answer. Does this opening up, kind of picking back on the previous question, what Dr. Kim had said about China and the blood of Korea, does this perhaps opening up of North Korea offer an opportunity for North Korea to become more independent of China? And following that, would a more open or independent North Korea be undesirable in any way for China? For example, having less influence or letting inspectors in, revealing a greater Chinese role in the North Korean nuclear program than previously known. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Grace Lee from Tokyo Broadcasting System. My question's for Dr. LUSE. It's been suspicious that there's been little talk about the U.S. detainees. And it seems like with Pompeo's trip, they should have been released then. What do you make of that? And my second question to the panel, where do you think the Trump-Kim summit will be happening and why?
Okay, we have 5 minutes for this long list of questions. Our panelists, Keith, do you want to start this round?
Just on the subject of detainees, I would imagine that this topic is very much at the top of the Trump administration agenda in talking to North Korea.
And Dr. Ren?
Dr. King is a China specialist, so he is more authoritative.
He's Chinese.
I think North Korea is independent enough. They, for many years, well, they have been, this does not have to be, don't have to go into the details. They have been advocating their ideology of Juche, and they have, as far as I know, they have eliminated Chinese actors from their language, and so on and so forth. They do not want to be told by the major powers what they should do. Well, the question is not that North Korea will be more dependent on China, more dependent on U.S. or some other countries. I think the question is that we need to bring about a different North Korea, a changed North Korea, a denuclearized North Korea. And for that, everyone has something to contribute. Thank you.
Chineseness in the Korean DNA.
Yeah, it is quite difficult for the foreigner, especially Western people, to understand the kind of emotion and also DNA in the blood of Koreans, because you know, China has been always the big countries and then quite influential, and so many countries around China learned from China a lot throughout history. But of course, they feel threatened when China became much more aggressive, and then also maybe expansionist, even though it is not by Han national, but foreign maybe national. So South Korea and Vietnam is a sort of countries who has a history of long fight against China, and still maintain their independence. So they have certain know-hows how to deal with China, you know. So you should not underestimate the kind of know-hows. This is one point. Second point is the, you know, one of the Korean newspapers revealed 5 conditions to give up nuclear weapons, you know, suggested by the North Korean side before this North Korea and the U.S. summit, and the 5 conditions. But among the 5s, there was no suggestions of withdrawal of U.S. armies. And then many people wondered or cast a kind of doubt of the, you know, reliability of the documents. But I fully understand it's quite possible. Because if you look at the history of North Korea and China relations, even throughout the Cold War period, there a period with a good relationship was quite short. Not really, you know, they don't really trust each other, but because of strategic interests, and because of their, you know, needs, they try to be close and help each other. But if the conditions been changed, and then North Korea will think differently. This is the first thing, and then I'll show you the evidence. 2007. North Korean, the foreign minister Kim Jae-kwan, deputy foreign minister at the moment, came to New York at the moment. He made a very important speech. If United States allow North Korea to possess nuclear weapons, we will have a special law to deter China in the Northeast Asia. So this is a kind of like a joke, but it's not. And then North Korea was quite serious in some sense, but of course, North Korea playing the game. And then North Korea also do know how to get the kind of draw attention from China and how to get the more service from China. So they are playing the game. But as I mentioned, if North Korea serve Chinese interest at this moment, and then North Korea lose very important part to play with. So that's why I think North Korea would not use the card, and then which is the card must be reserved for the next step, depending upon the interactive you mentioned. So depending upon the relationship with China and the United States. So this is we entering very complex games. Well, more actors now involved, and we do not know the outcomes. In the past, everything is clear. In fact, almost because of the clear line of ideology, clear line of political system, clear line of economic system. But now it's mixed, and so everything is on the table. President Trump said, China can say everything is possible. Maybe North Korea also can say, don't worry, we are on the table as well. Put the same menu, as you have, and so this is the situation.
This has been a very lively discussion. I'm sure everyone has more questions than 90 minutes ago, but feel free to stay on to talk to our panelists and get answers to the questions. But now please join me in thanking our panelists. Thank you. Thank you for coming.